May is over and it's time for the monthly Origin Roundup, about halfway through June. Don't worry too much about it, it took a while to put this one together. We got 10 awesome Origins that I haven't covered from the Origins Discord server, at least in the past little while. These are all awesome Origins that I recommend you check out by going to the Origins Discord server in the link down below. But let's get started. First off, we've got the Spore Springer Origin. This is a 3-impact Origin, humanoid fungus with a passion for jumping on cosmic spore clouds. This Origin is created by the Discord user known as Fintress Child. Springy spores. You can produce a cloud of cosmic confused spores. They'll shoot everything nearby away, even allowing you to jump on them. This is your primary ability. A little bit of a side note though, you can remove these by right clicking on them, but it's not just you who can remove them, anyone else in the game can actually remove these spores as well. Whenever you push your primary ability key, this will place down this spore within the direction that you're looking, which is where I advise you look directly down and jump up at the same time as you're pressing this ability so it can be placed below you. Because if you place it at the normal height of view, you won't be able to jump on top of it, because every time you get close to this thing, it will just propel you away instead. But if you do successfully jump on top of it, it can be used to get a lot of great height, which could be very useful for just getting around. Spore Shot. Gather your spores, shoot them, knocking back enemies or causing spore clouds to pulse. This is your secondary ability. When you do use this ability, it can be used to, well, knock back enemies, but if you time it perfectly and use it to hit directly on the spores of your primary ability, you can use it to get bonus propulsion than before, being going from like 10, 20 blocks of a jump height to potentially 30, even 40. You can use it to get a very good amount of height if you time it correctly. This doesn't do any damage on its own, but it can cause damage to mobs and entities that get shot away by them taking potential fall damage. Floaty, you float instead of falling, unless sneaking. This makes you immune from impact and fall damage. Basically, you have permanent slow falling unless you press shift when falling. Aerial spores, your speed is greatly increased while in the air. Your mining speed is also the same in the air as it is on land. Ultimately, this one doesn't matter too much. It's more the secret attribute of this ability where you have a permanent jump boost on you at all times, allowing you to jump 1.5 blocks high normally. And if you do hold sneak and then jump, you can jump more than 2 blocks, which is very useful. Viridian, your natural spawn is a warped forest. Pretty self-explanatory. You spawn the Nether by default in the warped forest dimension, which is pretty useful because you have easy access to wood at that point. Resting place, you passively heal whilst in the Nether. Basically, you just have a passive regeneration at all times whilst you're in the Nether dimension. Peacekeeper, your armor and armor toughness are 40% less effective than usual. It just means 40% less of each thing than what it actually says, so be very wary of that. Vertigo, you move a lot slower when you're on the ground, just means that your normal speed is slower than usual, and whilst yes, you technically do have faster air speed, you're gonna notice it a lot because you've got permanent slow falling on, so your overall movement is going to be slower than normal. Next we have the Hellchained Origin, a 3-impact Origin, a forsaken brutish mastermind banished to hell by the divine for practicing forbidden soul magic. This Origin is created by the Discord user known as Silent. Let's get into the abilities. Hellbound, you've been banished to the Nether as a form of punishment from the Divine. You spawn in the Nether and you cannot enter Nether portals. Yes, this is a Nether spawn Origin that doesn't allow you to leave the Nether, at least via normal Nether portals. There are other ways out though. Soul Harvesting, you can kill mobs for a chance to absorb their soul through forbidden magic, storing it in your soul bar. So there's a few layers to this ability. So first off, there's only a chance you'll be able to collect soul energy from these mobs that you do kill. Of course, those are just completely random chances and it doesn't really change too much, you just may or may not. The amount that you do gain after the fact you do though will of course change drastically depending what type of mob you kill. If you kill a passive mob such as a pig or a cow or something along those lines, you expect to get very minimal soul absorption returns. But if you kill a mob that is aggro against you, like or more strong and aggressive mobs, you're potentially going to get way more soul power than before. Astral projections. With forbidden magic, you can manifest your soul into the overworld, crossing dimensions in another form. This ability requires and slowly consumes stored souls. So you can activate this ability using your primary ability key. Now before you can actually activate it, you need to get to at least one section of the bar full of soul juice. Once you get to that point, you'll be able to press your primary ability and it will send you to the overworld. Now here's a few little tidbits to it. Any movement you make in the Nether dimension will translate to where you end up spawning in the overworld. Any movement you make in the overworld does not translate to where you will be in the Nether when you go back to that dimension, as your body will not move in the Nether dimension. Another little tidbit, people people can walk into your body that's currently in the Nether Dimension to teleport to your current soul form in the overworld. So it can be a very weird thing that people can use to hunt you down or find you a lot easier. It could be an easy way to help other people get out of the Nether Dimension quicker and other things along those lines. And then finally, you cannot use a Nether portal to go back to the Nether when you're in this form. This form barely sips away at your soul juice. You could probably keep in the overworld for a very extended period of time without worrying too much about it when you have a full bar of soul juice, though getting to that full bar of soul juice takes a lot of killing and a lot of luck. So overall, it's just an interesting thing. It's a little different to get to the overworld and honestly makes it be a bit more interesting of a Nether-based origin. Heavy acrobatics. With your special physique, you're immune to fall damage, and falling from high distances unleashes an AoE attack. You're immune to fall damage in both the overworld and the Nether Dimension, but this AoE attack that happens when you fall from a high distance will only ever happen in the Nether Dimension. This damage does not change depending on the height that you fall from. It's always going to be consistent, somewhere between 5 to 8 damage depending how close the mob is to where you actually land, and of course it deals a varying amounts of knockback damage as well. Strider technique, your webbed heat resistance feet let you walk on lava and you're immune to it. Soul speed, you walk nearly like normal on soul sand due to your arched hoof-like feet. There's a weird FOV bug, so it's going to cause a few issues because, it makes it look like you're going faster. It messes around when you're sprint jumping. Wouldn't worry about it too much. You can just turn it off in the settings. It's not too big of a problem. Fire tolerant. You take 50% less fire-related damage. You're immune to lava-based damage, but actual fire still hurts you just at a 50% less rate. Makes absolutely no sense on how you can be immune to lava but still take damage from fire, but, that's what it is. Dark green farm, you can sneak and right click a mushroom in its optimal habitat to bone meal it at the cost of some of your exhaustion. This is pretty much just a way to get yourself easy food whilst you're in the Nether Dimension. This does not work on any of the actual Nether tree mushrooms. It only functions on just regulatory mushrooms. It takes a little bit to get through the first saturation layer, but once you break through the saturation layer, it quickly consumes your hunger at an immense rate. Refined senses, you can see nearby mobs and projectiles through walls. Just basic mobs have a glowing effect when they're behind a wall. Those abilities were exclusive to your bound form, the version of you that is stuck in the Nether Dimension. The rest of these abilities are exclusive to your soul form, the version of you that can successfully get to the overworld. Crying purple. Crying obsidian is a natural repellent to your magic. When you're near crying obsidian, you'll be debuffed. When you get within about 10 to 15 blocks to an exposed piece of Carrion obsidian, you'll have a purple haze go around your screen. After a little bit, you'll gain blindness, weakness, and mining resistance 1 for the time period that you're near the Carrion obsidian. So just, if you see the purple haze, try and move away so you don't have the purple haze, otherwise you'll get a pretty nasty debuff. Fragile form, your soul form is unstable and weak, and as a result you have less health. Basically you have 7 hearts rather than 10. Environmental immunity, due to your incorporeal form you're immune to most types of environmental damage. Meaning you're immune to cactus based damage, so you run into a cactus, you won't ever have any problems with that, you can walk on top of them, no damage whatsoever, but berry bushes will still slow you down and deal damage to you, so be very wary. Floaty form, you jump much higher, fall much slower, and get knocked back far further. Basically, you have a very massive high jump, about 4 to 5 blocks when you first jump, and it's very useful to get into high places. You also slowly fall back down to earth, but you can press shift to curb that, and you still do have the fall damage immunity, as with the previous ability that I said earlier in this video. And then also, whenever you do take any form of knockback damage, rather than taking a normal amount, you'll get flung far further than usual. So again, another thing to keep in mind. Permeable, you can walk through pressure plates, tripwires, doors, and other traps without affecting them. You probably would have seen this going into effect when I tried to use a pressure plate to set off a piece of TNT to use the knockback effect, but yeah, pressure plates won't be set off by you, tripwires won't be set off by you, and other form of pressure sensitive items won't be set off by you. Contingency plan, you can sacrifice your absorbed soul to save your life whilst in soul form. Whenever you're about to take a lethal amount of damage that will kill you, instead of taking that damage, it will take a little bit of your soul juice. When you run out of soul juice though, however, you will be teleported back to the Nether Dimension, and you'll also be only on a single heart, so, be careful. Next we have the Emberdrake origin, a 2-impact origin, flightless dragonkin that adapted to harsh environments of the Nether. This origin is created by the Discord user known as Sapson. Emberheart, you're immune to damage from fire and lava and can hold your breath for longer whilst swimming through lava. You also require more food than the average human. I mean, layman terms, you can just swim through lava like it was water. You don't even need to care that it's lava, just swim through it, doesn't matter. Just make sure you keep an eye on your oxygen. Another note that comes along with this origin ability here though is you're also hexproof, meaning that you're immune to blindness, fatigue, poison, and hunger effects, but you're also unable to benefit from absorption, health boosts, and other bonus effects like that as well. Furthermore, we have Stone Scale. Your tough scales protect you and also help you glide smoothly through the lava, increasing your swim speed. You would have noticed the pretty decent swim speed that I had in lava in the clip that's currently playing from before, as well as you have 2 and a bit armor bars full worth of armor. It's like a nice little bonus. It means that iron armor can effectively fill up your armor pool pretty well. Hardened Claws. Your sturdy claws are capable of digging through netherrack, nylium, and magma blocks with ease. You also break ore blocks slightly faster with your hands. This is a usefully smart ability to have for a nether-based origin. If you get stuck in a little bit of a hole or just at a random place where you have no easy access to anything, you can easily get out with the use of your bare hands. But that's the catch. You get reasonable mining speed whenever you mine with your bare hands, but if there's anything in your hand, not only is your mining speed significantly lengthened, you also won't get the dropped item for things such as netherrack or magma blocks. You need to be using a bare hand, otherwise it just doesn't work. Nether Scourge. You preyed upon almost every single nether inhabitant, instilling some form of primal fear within them from you. Neutral nether mobs like piglins will automatically try to attack you regardless of whether you have gold armor on or not. It says what it does on the tin. Any form of neutral mod in the nether will just straight up attack you, no questions asked. That is as simple as it is. A little bonus that comes along with this as well as omnivorous. You can eat bones, blaze powder, magma cream, leather, crimson fungus, and warped fungus, as well as rotten flesh and spider eyes are slightly more nourishing for you, just to make it so that your food situation is a little easier to work around, as well as any form of piglins and piglin brutes will also drop pork chops for you. So, you know, your food situation won't be doing too bad when you're playing around in the nether dimension. Thermal instability. You take damage over time whilst exposed to water and cause any water source you stand in to evaporate. First part's very self-explanatory, but for the evaporation thing, effectively whenever you stand in a water source, it will evaporate that source block. But the thing is, if this is in an infinite water source area, such as maybe an ocean or a 2x2 area of water, it doesn't matter. The water will immediately replace itself, evaporating itself again. No matter how quickly you attempt to move around the area, you're not going to be able to really just evaporate enough of a water source to make it as permanent damage. So overall, neat, interesting ability, but completely useless because infinite water sources exist. Draconic Authority. Press the primary key to unleash a mighty roar, pushing nearby enemies away, igniting the very air around you. You can't use this ability while submerged in lava or water. This is just like the ultimate ability to just push off a huge wave of mobs, because not only does it deal a fair amount of damage, it manages to push the mobs around 5 to 8 blocks away from you, and because of one of your earlier passive abilities, they will burn and take fire damage regardless of what they are, because that's just what your ability will do. Sheer brute force them to actually burn. Overall, very, very powerful and very useful ability. Flame Step. Press your secondary key to blink to a point that you can see within a range. You leave behind a burning echo that follows in your path, igniting creatures that collide with it. This ability has a range of 15 blocks, and the damage it deals to mobs isn't massive. About 3 rounds of this dashing through a mob pool will lead to about 20 hit points of damage to the husk. It's ultimately something that will just be like a little bit of a bonus in damage. It's more important about the whole 15 block dash thing that can go over wide, deep caverns and completely ignore that. You can just dash across as long as it's shorter than 15 blocks. Next we have the Carrion origin. This is a 3 impact origin, an anthropomorphic creature of unknown origin, killing and devouring anything in its path. This origin is created by the Discord user known as Cryptcraft. Let's get into it. Strong creature. You're much stronger than normal beings, dealing more damage and being faster and having a longer reach than normal. Unfortunately, you're unable to draw bows or use shields properly. So your base damage is now 6 to 7 depending on you if you critically hit or not, which is very powerful, meaning that wooden swords can just be like a 10 hit weapon, which is really stupid. You've also got an extreme reach that is pretty much going to outrange effectively everything unless they have a bow or any form of ranged weapon. Then you might see a challenge, but usually, especially our pillagers, tend to get a lot closer anyway, so you still outrange them. But the biggest thing here is you can't use bows and you can't use shields, though your sheer range is pretty powerful and does help curb that ability that you're now losing. Good meal. When you feed yourself full, you'll get regeneration for a couple of seconds. Basically it just means that you have a permanent regeneration effect on you whilst your hunger is full. It will last for around 4 seconds if you do go below your full hunger bar, but as long as you got a full hunger bar, it will just continue to reset and go back to 4 seconds pretty regularly, so you won't have to worry about it too much. Thick muscles, your body is covered with a resistance shell all the time, giving you a default of 8 armor points for all times. Pretty useful. Camouflage, you can camouflage by sneaking for a while. About 2 seconds after holding the shift key, you will become invisible, but you will lose this invisibility the moment you stop sneaking. Acro immunity, your body does not react to poison as it's immune to it. Self-explanatory, come on. Spread, you can turn certain blocks at your position into flesh, aka never warp block, spreading it around you. This costs hunger and will not activate at 6 hunger points or 3 shanks or less. This is your secondary ability. When you press it, it will just create a never warp block on the block that you're currently standing on. It's probably not too useful, but hey, you can do it. Shoot, using this ability will freeze your enemy for 3 or more seconds. This says exactly what it does in the tin. Wait a minute, that's the wrong way around. It does exactly what it says in the tin. When you press this button, your primary ability key, it will freeze the mob that you're pointing at for 3 or more seconds. Does absolutely nothing else. Doesn't do damage, does not get a bunch of other mobs in the vicinity, literally only the single mob. So overall, could be useful, could also not be useful. Sink. When landing on flesh never warp blocks, you sink into it, allowing you to not take fall damage. This is where the ability from before, where you can create never warp blocks by simply just pressing your secondary key, seems like it could be a little bit more useful, except for the fact that it doesn't time itself correctly to be able to place the never warp block down or replace it before you hit the never warp block, so you can't use it to negate your fall damage in that way. You can of course have it pre-planned to be there, or you could just have a never warp block in your hand at all times in order to try and prevent fall damage that way, but I don't know, it just seems to be the same as a water bucket, to be completely honest. Actually, that's the one thing the water bucket will do that's very painful. The water bucket will destroy other non-tile entities that are around you, so maybe you might want to use a block in this case, I don't know. Better, you have 1 less heart than a normal organism. You have 9 hearts rather than 10, not much else. Carnivore, the rotting carcasses that is your body craves meat for sustenance. Again, you can only eat meat. You can still eat Minecraft cakes because, you know, that's just a fun thing that exists, but you can only eat meat. Not much else. Targeter, entity within 10 blocks that has less than 20 health are highlighted. You're also 25% faster. I thought there was another ability that was making you 25% faster. Basically, any mobs that got less than 20 health total, you can see them a lot easier because they glow. There's not much more to it, really. Wall crawler, you can crawl up surfaces and ceilings with your tentacles. Basically, every surface is treated like a ladder. You can climb up it, no problems, no questions asked, you know? And flammable, you take twice as much damage from fire. Next, we have the Magmite origin. This is a 3-impact origin. Made of dense, molten rock, Magmites use their weight to their advantage. This origin is created by the Discord user known as Dan's other clone. Nether Inhabitant, your natural spawn will be in the Nether. Self-explanatory, you spawn in the Nether dimension. Hefty, you move slowly on the ground, but you have increased jump height and air mobility. I'll tell you this much, your ground movement speed is drastically slower than before. Massively slower than before. But sprint jumping is going to become your very best friend because not only can you jump pretty high, but because of your air mobility, you can get pretty far distances in very short periods of time as long as you're sprint jumping. Without it though, your movement is very slow. Spring, you can launch yourself a small distance in the air. You can either use it on the ground or when moving through lava. This is your primary ability and gives you about 4 to 5 block of jump height ability. You cannot use this whenever you're already in the air. You must be on the ground or in lava in order for this ability to actually go off. It can be kind of useful, but moving around generally, you're not going to find too much use out of it. When you're in lava though, you might actually find some pretty useful uses out of it, so you don't have to worry about making a 1 block high thing to get out of. You can just simply spring out of the lava. Soft landing, you don't take any fall damage, self-explanatory. Furthermore, on that, landing from high distances will damage nearby enemies if they are on the ground. This damage doesn't seem to scale with the height that you fall from. It literally is just going to do a consistent amount of damage regardless of the height, and the height is like low enough that you can use your Sprig ability to trigger your Quake effect, which is pretty useful. So when it comes down to metallic ores, this will only function on iron, copper, and gold with your bare hands. It's very useful for that, but it does not work on any other form of ores. It's very useful for getting through to stone pretty easily because there is that increased speed buff, which is very useful when people actually remember to do that at the same time when giving you the ability to mine bare stone. Furthermore to that, you also got hot hands. Mining metal ore with your hands will automatically smelt it down to its ingot form, so keep that in mind. I'm not 100% sure if it quite affects fortune and things along those lines, but if you need the raw version of these ores, make sure to use a pickaxe of some kind rather than your bare hands. Fire immunity, you're immune to all types of fire damage. That's expected with this type of origin. Igneous. Because of your volcanic nature, you can move through lava more quickly, but you'll sink a lot quicker as well, and you'll also start to freeze when exposed to water. Breaking speeds are unaffected by fluids. The last point, that's just aqua affinity. You break things as normal under form of liquids, it doesn't matter so much. You move a lot faster in lava, which is pretty beautiful, but you're kind of going to have to hold spacebar a lot because you sink rapidly fast. And yes, rather than taking damage in water normally, you'll instead slowly freeze to death like you would if you fell into the snow. So pretty cool change instead of it just being immediately you take damage because you take a bath. Magmatic core. Being in lava will sate your hunger over time, but it's not very filling. It's not very filling. It pretty much gives you half a hunger point every 10 seconds. It could be very useful for moving around the nether because it is just a natural regenerating hunger, which can be very useful, but at the same time it is quite slow and should not be relied upon. Ductile, the softness of gold is very form-fitting on your body compared to other metals, providing an equivalent to iron armor. Basically, gold is now going to be the equivalent defense of iron armor. It doesn't affect the tools. This probably won't really be that useful, let's be real. The Puppeteer origin, Impact 3 origin. Dark Arts practitioners, with their magic, puppeteers toy with their target's life no matter where they try to hide. This is an origin originally created by Inkbat, but updated and recoded for the most recent versions of Minecraft by Hello There in Discord. Voodoo Doll. Use G to summon a voodoo doll at your location. Right click the doll to give it an item to hold or to take an item back. If the doll is holding an item, hitting G will teleport the doll to you instead of removing the doll. I mean, the description describes it exactly what it's going to be able to do. It's your primary ability key, which is G by default. It's a doll that you can put out, you can give it an item. If it has an item in hand, it won't remove itself when you press G, instead teleport towards you. If it doesn't have an item in hand, it will just remove the doll instead. Target victim. Hidden entity to lock it as your victim. The victim will have particle effects that only you can see. You can use your secondary ability key to target yourself as the victim. Use it again to clear the target. Pyro Voodoo. After locking your target, you can set fire to your doll to torture your victim. For mobs, the state of your victim directly mirrors the doll. Players will be set on fire for 20 seconds unless the doll is extinguished or removed, to make it a little bit weaker and not overbearing on players. This fire thing does not seem to work on yourself though. Ender Voodoo. After locking onto a target and giving your voodoo doll an ender pearl, you can use G to teleport the target to your doll. This also works if you're the target yourself. Keep in mind this effect does not work through dimensions. When you're in a different dimension to your voodoo ball, you instead get a no block sound going dinging at you to let you know that, hey, you can't do anything about your voodoo doll right now. It's currently holding an item and it's in a different dimension. Good luck. Potion Voodoo. By giving the voodoo doll a potion or its ingredient to hold, it will grant the target the corresponding effect. Giving it a spectral arrow will give the target a glowing effect. Giving it a shulker shell will give the target a levitation effect. Illager Ally. Illagers consider you allies and villagers will consider you as foe. Iron golems will attack you on sight and villagers will raise their prices to absurd levels. Blinding Sun. Places with strong sunlight nearby, a light level of 13 plus from sunlight, slows you down and exhausts you. You have a permanent hunger and slowness debuff whenever you're out in the sunlight, not much more to it. Picky preferences. You can only eat raw meat. You refuse to consume cooked meat, vegetables, milk, and potions. Makes sense because you got to counteract the fact that you can have an infinite potion effect on you at all times by the fact that you can only ever have that one effect and nothing else. This is also one of those origins that does not let you eat cake. Depression. Next we have the Carrion origin, a 3-impact origin. The Carrion is known for unusual skulls they wear, feed on the magic of potions, and as a result have become some of the most skilled alchemists around. This is an origin created by the Discord user known as Flowers in the Dark. Alchemy. You can use bones on empty bottles to make awkward potions, and then use items from around the nether to make them into potions. So here's a little tidbit here. Look out for any form of item that has a secondary tooltip when you're using this origin. It will have a little quote, like let's say for the bone it says this is your most useful tool in the game. There's going to be other things where it's like nice and slippery, or striders love these. Like there's going to be little additional tooltips. These are the items that can be used on your custom awkward potions to create cool custom potions. Most of these effects tend to be very short, like 20 seconds or a handful of seconds depending on what they are, but you can make your own custom potions very easily. Alchemist Adornment. Your kind often adorn themselves with bones to protect themselves from nether flames. Adding a cooling ingredient to the skeleton skull will allow you to do the same, though it can break in water. So there's a few things to explain here. So in order to get this protection from lava, you need to get a Cadaveron skeleton helmet. I'm not going to be able to say the word properly. I'm very sorry on that one. In order to get there, you need to have 5 bone blocks and a helmet configuration and a crafting table to create a skeleton skull. In order to create bones, you can just use 3 bones in a crafting table in a straight line to create a bone block, so it's a little easier than what you usually would in typical vanilla Minecraft, but this is exclusive to your origin especially. And then in order to turn the skeleton head that you've now created into one that protects you from lava, you need to get magma cream and right click on the helmet, and then now it's a helmet that will cool you, so whenever you go into lava you will not take any form of fire or lava based damage, making you hyper resistant to it, which is pretty neat. Magic consumption. You're dependent on magic from potion effects. They'll slightly feed you whenever you gain them, but you begin to experience incredibly annoying symptoms if you go too long without being under any form of status effect. After around 3 to 5 minutes of not having any form of status effects put on you whatsoever, you'll start to have this weird flicker of filters occur on your screen for about 30 seconds to eventually this little lightning bar that appears. Once that fills up, you'll get into permanent darkness until you get a status effect put on you. This can be any form of status effect, whether that just be simply taking a debuff from one of the various mobs in the Nether dimension, or whether it be drinking a potion for yourself. Nether Inhabitant, your natural spawn will be in the Nether, self-explanatory, you can already tell. And then probably the most important ability of this entire origin, Nether Glass. You figured out how to use the Nether's sand to make your potion bottles. With 3 soul sand and a magma block, you can create 3 glass bottles. So effectively, you just gotta pray and hope that you spawn either in a soul sand valley or very close to one. Otherwise, you might be a touch screwed. Milk. Trying to clear potion effects from yourself will end very badly. One very simple thing. Don't ever drink a milk bucket with this origin. You wanna know why? Because it immediately kills you. No questions asked. You drink that bucket of milk, you're dead. Next, we have the Pressure Pirate. This is the 2 impact origin. An airborne pirate specializing in range combat and utilizing air pressure to dart around its surroundings. This is an origin created by a Discord user known as Shiny. A pirate's hobby. You can craft pirate tools to aid you in your quest for the ultimate treasure. Basically, you get awesome crafting recipes for custom items, what's meant to be a musket but still comes out as a crossbow for some weird reason, a pirate grenade which explodes when thrown, as well as the ability to just create bundles. Because, you know, Mojang put that in the game but haven't really given us access to it at all yet, even though it's been several updates now. Bullets. You can craft normal and special bullets. Craft special bullets by right-clicking a normal bullet with a valid material in your inventory. So the bullets don't seem to quite work as intended, same with the musket itself. As usually when you do the crafting recipe for the musket, it usually should be turned into a musket, but it's still a crossbow, and the same follows through with the bullets. They usually, when you do that crafting recipe, it should be a bullet. Kind of similar to how the pirate grenade is a fireworks core thing, but it's still named a pirate grenade, but the musket and bullets are still named the original item. So obviously there's something here that's not quite working as intended, but I'm pretty sure that that'll be fixed pretty quickly, probably by the time you even see this video. Pirate's Intuition. A great knowledge of the world's treasures allow you to uncover riches more easily. Yeah, I have no idea what this one means, to be completely honest, sorry. Pressure Prowess. You have an easier time moving through air than most, and when out of gunpowder, you can substitute it with air pressure. The second part doesn't matter as much because, well, the muskets don't work as intended right now. And your air movement speed is kind of insane, making sprint jumping extraordinarily fast for you. An additional hidden thing with the previous ability is that you have your primary ability, which is a nice propulsion jump with some really cool sound effects to it, and then when you're in midair you can press your sneak key in order to slowly float back down to earth so you don't take any fall damage. Both of these use up some of the air bar, which will slowly regenerate when you're not moving around in air too much. Lightweight Lamandin. You can walk on water unless sneaking and are less resistant to knockback. With more air pressure, healing is more effective, while with less air pressure, healing is less effective. The whole healing thing is based upon how much air pressure is in your air bar. The lower it is, the less effective your healing is going to be overall, so just keep that in mind. As well as when it comes to walking on water, you can only do that if you have more than a third of your air bar filled up. Frail Force, your focus on mobility and range techniques leaves you less experienced in the art of hand-to-hand combat. Basically, your overall melee damage is cut in half. Instead of doing 8 damage for Netherite Sword, you'll do 4/5 depending on your luck of the hit. Your critical hits will equal the actual power of the sword that you're using, so you critically hit with a Netherite Sword, you do 8 damage. And your fist will only ever do 1 single hit point worth of damage. Regardless of whether it's a critical hit or not, your fist will only ever do 1 hit point of damage. Next we have the Korok origin. This is a 2 impact origin, a small mischievous forest spirit that loves hiding. This origin is created by by the Discord user known as Syntax Aerophile. Natural instincts. Living in the forest all your life has given you strong knowledge of the trees and natural elements, allowing you to traverse trees with ease. Basically, you have the ability to pass through trees like they were, kind of like how they're scaffolding. You can climb up them through the actual blocks itself, which could make for easy traversal through forests and trees themselves. Hardened body. As a child of the forest, your body is hardened, giving you a strong immunity against poison and wither. You're immune both to poison and the wither-based effects. Leafy transportation. Using the natural power, you can move yourself upwards of 50 blocks using the secondary keybind. This is your secondary ability. This is effectively an instant teleportation keybind that can teleport you 50 blocks from your current location. This does have a cooldown of roughly around 60 seconds, so it's a useful ability that you can only have every now and then. Unfamiliar organism. Koroks are rare creatures and little is known about them. The only known facts are that they are small and are weak to physical attacks. You're 1.5 blocks tall and your physical attack damage will do an extra half a heart of damage to you. So a husk will usually do 1 heart of damage, it will now do 1.5 hearts of damage. It's a little bit noticeable but not game ending. Leafy Copter. By spitting thick leaves in your offhand, you can propel yourself into the air. Uses oak leaves. This is your primary ability that can provide a nice little jumperoonie into the air, which gives you slow falling on your way back down. But keep in mind, depending on how you time this, let's say you've already made a jump and then you use this ability, it might propel you way higher into the sky than initially intended, which also leads to a little bit of a weird problem that the slow falling is going to run out before you hit the ground, so you ultimately will die of fall damage, so be careful. Special maracas. By harvesting the energy from the beetroot seeds, you're able to expand your inventory. Hold your seeds in the main hand, then use the primary key. Basically, with those beetroot seeds, you have your own portable additional chest, on top of whatever ender chests and shulker boxes you may already have. And to end us off on a little bit of a joke origin, we have the Watermelon origin, a zero impact origin created by the Discord user known as Little Butter. Let's go through it. Short, due to being a watermelon, you're only 1 block tall. Solar strength, you become more powerful during the day. You gain both regeneration and strength whilst outside in the sun. Water breather, you're mostly made of water, which allows you to temporarily breathe and see underwater. You have roughly a doubled breathing time period underwater, as well as you can see a lot clearer whilst underwater. On top of that, you've also got swimmer. Being made of water also allows you to permanently swim faster, which is just another useful thing. Magma immunity, magma blocks will deal 0 damage towards you. No phantoms will spawn either, which is interesting to say the least. And fragile, you have 7 hearts due to your small size. Anyway, that's the list. What are your thoughts on these 10 origins from the previous month? It's like the middle of June now and I understand that, but hey, the video is here. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to click this video on screen when we go through the top 10 origins that I liked from January. God, that was ages ago. No, that was December. Oi. Anyway, bye bye.